Hello, soul family. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Divine Soul Guidance. My name is April, and I'm a spiritual mentor and awakening guide, here to guide and support you through the stages of your spiritual awakening. Today's topic is a spin-off of a series I created recently on TikTok, which I will do my best to condense into this shorter video. If you find this topic interesting and you want to go deeper, feel free to look up my 5-part series on TikTok, which is linked in my bio, or to reach out to me with any other questions you might have. This segment will not go into as much depth as the series, but still, I hope you find it helpful. God placed it on my heart to share this message after my own pursuit of trying to find a divine partner. I'm not a relationship expert, and I am still working towards mastery in this area, like many of you. But God shared this divine wisdom with me through my own healing work, life experiences, and self-study, so that I can perhaps provide some sort of validation and reassurance for you for what you've experienced on your own quest to find a partner. Let's dive into it. First, I want to begin by illustrating what makes it challenging for those of us on this spiritual quest to sift through the sea of fish as we attempt to find our divine partner. I'm going to use a whiteboard to illustrate this, which hopefully will make sense to you. Before we move into the illustration, I want to clarify that this message is intended for people who are highly evolved, spiritual, and awakened, or perhaps on their way to becoming those things. Because the dynamics in the dating world change dramatically when you ascend and come out of the normal 3D patterns and behaviors that others are trapped in. You begin to see others, partners included, from a spiritual lens. You become much more selective about who you share your time and energy with, and you will find that your high vibration will automatically make you a mismatch for those who are trapped in their unconscious, wounded state. Now that we've covered that, let's go ahead and get to the illustration, which I hope makes as much sense to you as it did to me the first time I saw it. I cannot actually take credit for this. I happened to see this on TikTok from another creator, and I no longer have the video, so I can't even give her credit. But I'm a very visual person, and this made everything click into place for me. So I realized as I'm drawing, this is probably going to turn out backwards from the way you see it, but I don't think I'm talented enough to write backwards. So do the best you can to follow along as I'm drawing the illustration. So when you think of yourself as a highly evolved, conscious, spiritually awakened person, I'm going to show you what happens when you enter the dating pool. And we're going to use a triangle to represent the population as a whole. The triangle is going to be kind of divided into 3 parts. So down here at the bottom is the 90% of the normal population, which you probably have encountered in the dating world and in other relationships like family relationships and friendships, your workplace, etc. This part of the population is the part of the population that still has not awoken. They are not conscious. They haven't done any sort of work on themselves. They're not aware of how their patterns and their childhood wounding impacts their relationships and the way they show up in the world. And they're not even interested, frankly, in healing or becoming more aware. They're just going through the motions of life, repeating cycles and patterns one after the other, usually in a cycle of suffering of some sort, and just very unwilling to change. So that's 90%. When you first wake up, you may date people in this category, and these are generally going to be karmic relationships, which are full of drama and conflict and are here to teach us lessons. But the further you move through your spiritual journey, the less appealing this 90% of the population is going to be to you. Your vibration will literally be on such a different level from this percent of the population that it won't even be an option to date them. You will energetically repel a lot of the people in this 90% because your vibrations are on a completely different level. So we can rule that out from the dating pool. You may try to date these people, but you're soon going to realize that They don't see you, they don't understand you, they don't operate or think the way you do as a spiritually minded person, and you soon will just stop trying to go after those kind of people. So that leaves us with 10% of the population, which are possibilities for partners and for romantic relationships. And in this 10%, we're going to divide that even further. So we're going to say that this next 7% of the population is the percent of people who have done some work on themselves. They are aware of their wounding and how that impacts them in their relationships. They do want to become better people. They're working towards becoming healthier and of breaking patterns and cycles. And they aren't as elevated or evolved as you are, but they could make potential partners. It is possible that you could maybe find a soulmate in this pool of 7%. But again, if you think about where you live, I live, for example, in a rather lowly populated area. And so if you're now down to 1 out of 10 people who are options, then you have to look at things like chemistry and compatibility and having a true connection with them, which may mean that there aren't very many in the area where you live. But they are people that you could find a meaningful soulmate connection with. So that's 7% of the population. Now, if we move to the top, this is going to be 3% remaining. If you are anything like me, or maybe on your way up this ladder, then that 3% of the population is what you're looking for to find your divine counterpart. This would be where the divine masculines and the divine feminines fall. The people who are highly evolved spiritually, who are awakened and aware, who've done a lot of healing work on themselves and are continuing to work on themselves, and who've probably stepped into their purpose in some way. They're living from their authentic selves, and they're stepping into their purpose, fulfilling their divine mission here on earth. So when you consider the 90% to the 7% to the 3%, to find that 3% of the dating pool who is a spiritual match for you is going to be rather challenging. And chances are they may not live in the same city as you. They may not live in the same state as you. And they may not even live in the same country as you, which is why it feels sometimes hopeless or frustrating to keep bumping up against people who are in this lower tier, or just, we're not saying that they're lower, but just that they haven't evolved to where you're at. That's not to say that there isn't hope, because I do believe a lot of it is energetics, that the universe is going to work to bring you together with someone who is your spiritual equal. What is helpful about this visual, or at least it was to me, is that it explains why sometimes we feel frustrated and down on ourselves when we don't seem to be finding our sacred partner. Why it feels so challenging to keep searching and only finding woundedness and unconscious behaviors in the dating world. But we must remember that we are the forerunners. We are the ones that are waking up first. This does not mean that our partner does not exist, and it just means that we are the leader. So to find each other and someone else who is on our vibration may just take a little bit more time and a little bit more patience. But that person is out there and is ready to meet us when we come into alignment with ourselves. And that's a good thing, because the options that we do have will be worth the wait. We wouldn't be satisfied with people who are unconscious or not at our spiritual vibration level. So when we finally welcome in the spiritual partnership, it is going to be the most beautiful expression of love, safety, and connection that we've ever experienced. Now that we have that visual in our mind of two awakened souls, a divine masculine and a divine feminine, searching for each other in this very small pool of options, I want to talk about what happens during that preparation period before we come into union with our divine counterpart. What happens when we leave one relationship and prepare for another? This preparation phase is extremely important for both partners because it serves as a kind of training ground for us to heal any wounds that have been brought to the surface in relationships that didn't work out, to become more solid within ourselves, and to really get to know ourselves. The period of being alone between relationships is so important because if we just jump right into another relationship without using the time after the ending of our last relationship to reflect and get clear on what it is we want to see and experience in our next relationship, then we're probably going to end up repeating really painful lessons and patterns. Most of us on this spiritual journey have experienced enough negative relationships to know that we do not want to go backwards. We don't want to keep repeating those karmic cycles. That we are ready for someone to meet us spiritually, emotionally, and mentally at the place where we are now. Ideally, between relationships, we would be using this preparation phase to grow and to come into alignment within ourselves, so that when our sacred partner does come into our life, everything's in place. We've done all the healing work. We have our career in the place we want it. Our other relationships are in the place we want them. And we have made space emotionally in our lives for another person to step in and easily integrate into our reality. We don't have to work so hard either to find love, because when we're at that higher vibration and we're living from our authentic selves, we will naturally attract the right partner. The universe will guide us into union with our divine counterpart when the time is right. And we don't really have to go out and search and try so hard, because a lot of it happens on an energetic level. Now that we understand the purpose of the preparation phase, let's talk briefly about what you might experience as you're out in the dating world and maybe trying to re-enter that dating culture to look for your divine counterpart. As you're out sifting and sorting through the different options, which, as I said, you'll find are few, you may experience still some lessons that you have to work through. There may be karmic relationships, which at first appear to be an intense connection with somebody. They'll start really passionately and intensely, and we may mistake that for a spiritual connection. But in reality, those karmic relationships are working out karma. They're teaching us lessons that maybe we didn't learn in a previous relationship or even a previous lifetime, so that we have the chance to get it right this time and we're not going to make the same mistake. We may also encounter other individuals, as I said, who haven't done a lot of work on themselves, who are operating from their wounding and patterns, and they're projecting their wounds and their emotions onto us. So you're going to find everything from codependency to ghosting and love bombing. You might find people who are scared of commitment, who are unwilling to reciprocate the same amount of energy and support and love that you're able to give them. And just in general, people who maybe have just, you can see that their wounding is affecting them. This is all purposeful. So as we're experimenting, even if we are highly aware, sometimes our light will attract unhealed individuals to us. And even if we're looking for a spiritual person and we ourselves have done a lot of work on ourselves, there's a chance that we're going to bump into these types of connections as we're on the path to finding our divine match. And the purpose, again, is just to continue to heal and learn those lessons and to become really, really clear about what it is we do want, so that when we find our counterpart, we will immediately recognize them. When you have learned all of the lessons that you need to learn from karmic relationships, and when you have come into inner union with yourself. The universe is going to guide you towards one of three types of soul connections: a soulmate, your twin flame, or your divine counterpart. And we're going to briefly examine each one. Again, I go into these in more detail in my TikTok series, but let's see if I can explain this so it's clear. A soulmate is a person with whom you have a soul recognition that perhaps you were kindred spirits in another lifetime. And when you meet them, it just feels like you're meeting someone familiar, like they're almost part of you, that you just click together, you vibe really well, and the relationship between the two of you is very harmonious and reciprocal. A twin flame connection, on the other hand, a lot of times comes in very intensely. It's highly charged, highly magnetized, highly electrifying, and very, very spiritual. And unlike a soulmate connection, it can cause some friction because it can shine a light on the dark parts of ourselves or on the wounds that we've kept hidden. And it can really scare us, or the intensity can feel really intimidating. Twin flame connections typically are the soul connections that can cause us to have a spiritual awakening because they're so spiritually intense. The story goes that twin flames were once one soul that divided into two. And so when you're brought back together, it's like this powerful, supercharged energy. Finally, a divine counterpart is what I would consider more of a spiritual teacher and a life partner. A divine counterpart is, like I said, a divine masculine coming together with a divine feminine who are both living on their highest timeline. They're in their purpose and they are healed and awakened. And they come together to form this deeply spiritual, healing, and powerful connection. These are the leaders of the planet. These are the partnerships that literally change worlds. And I will talk next briefly how you know when you've met this person. You'll know when you've found your sacred partner, when you meet someone who's in their divine masculine or divine feminine energy. This type of connection will challenge you to grow and evolve in ways that other relationships haven't. But it will also feel like the most beautiful expression of love and safety you've ever felt. Unlike karmic relationships, a sacred partnership will lead you towards a greater depth of healing, as well as a more expansive opening of the heart. The reason being is that this union has God at the center. It has unconditional love and mutual respect and support. If we treat these sacred partnerships as a spiritual practice, whereby we are embracing and accepting all of the challenges and triggers for what they are, which is an opportunity to open our hearts and to move closer to love, we have the potential of expanding our minds, bodies, and spirits in ways we never have before. In other words, the relationship itself is the catalyst to our growth. With that being said, I want to add one final piece on this topic about how the element of intimacy comes into play with these sacred partnerships. When two sacred beings come together, a divine masculine and a divine feminine, the power that their shared energy creates is explosive. It literally has the power to change worlds. This is especially true when it comes to sharing sexual energy. Sexual energy, when shared with someone who is safe, awakened, and in their divine essence, is highly transformative and healing. That is why some of the most spiritual people have such a highly sexual and healing energy about them. They are in tune with the Creator and with the divinity within themselves. Two divine beings who merge energies in an intimate way create this ball of energy, which is highly powerful. And at the moment of their ecstasy, they send that ball of energy out into the cosmos and can literally make an electromagnetic impact on the world. This is the way sexual intimacy was meant to be experienced, for the purpose of connecting with the divine and for the purpose of creation, but in a very sacred and safe way. Sadly, what you may experience in today's dating culture is the opposite of that. You're going to experience people using each other, people trying to get their needs met through intimacy, people sleeping with someone on the first night that they meet them, or sleeping around with multiple partners and not giving any appreciation or sacredness to the experience. And when you are merging souls with somebody who has a lot of wounding and negative energy, that's going to leave that negative energetic imprint on your own spirit. So we should always be very careful as we awaken and become more aware of who we are sharing our sexual energy with, and to make sure that it is with somebody who is at the same frequency as us. That concludes today's message. Thank you for listening. Again, it is important to remember that as spiritually evolved individuals, our path is not going to look like the path of others who are out in the dating world. We may have few options of partners who are on the same path as us, but do remain trusting that the universe is conspiring on our behalf to bring us into union with our sacred partner. The universe wants divine masculines and divine feminines to come together, because it is us who will bring positive change to the planet. Therefore, never for a second doubt that you will be guided to one another when the time is right. If you'd like to catch the full series on this topic, feel free to head over to my TikTok page, where I go into much more depth about all of these topics. All the links can be found in my bio. Or if you are going through a spiritual awakening and looking for further guidance and support, I would love to work with you. Check out the Soul Awakened course preview to learn about all of my mentorship options. Take care, stay tuned for more content on this page, and I'm sending you so much love. Hope to see you then.